The small town of Greenwood, nestled in the heart of rural America, was as timeless as the seasons that came and went. Each fall, the golden leaves drifted through the town's streets, painting a picture of serenity. But for Tom McMillan, serenity was something foreign to him now. Years ago, he had left this peaceful town in search of success, climbing the corporate ladder and building a life far removed from the simplicity of his upbringing. Now his days were spent in a fast-paced world of boardrooms, deadlines, and business suits, a world as distant from Greenwood as the stars. But everything came crashing back to him in an instant. It was a call that he had never expected and had been dreading for years. His grandmother, the woman who had raised him after the untimely death of his parents, had fallen ill. She was the anchor of his youth, the constant in a world that had otherwise shifted beneath his feet. And now, she lay in a hospital bed in Greenwood, waiting for him. Tom's heart raced as he boarded the flight back home, his mind awash with memories. Memories of running through fields as a boy, fishing with his grandfather in the creek, and his grandmother's gentle, unwavering presence. But those memories were distant, buried beneath the years of corporate success and urban life. Greenwood was no longer the home he knew, or perhaps it was he who had changed. The closer he got to Greenwood, the more the weight of the past settled on his shoulders. He hadn't been back in years, not since he had landed his first big promotion. His career had become his life, and as the years passed, his visits home became fewer and farther between. Now, walking through the hospital doors, a strange mixture of guilt and longing twisted in his chest. His grandmother lay in a sterile hospital room, her once strong body now frail and fragile. When she saw him, her face lit up with a tired, loving smile. "Tommy," she whispered softly, her voice raspy but full of warmth. "I knew you'd come." Tom took her hand in his, feeling the frailness of her skin, and tried to smile back. But the weight of his absence was heavy in the room. "I'm here, Grandma. I'm here." The next few days passed in a blur of hospital visits and quiet walks through the town. The Greenwood of Tom's youth was still there, but it had changed just as he had. He walked the familiar streets, past the old diner where he used to grab milkshakes with his friends, past the baseball field where he had once played with reckless abandon. Everything was the same, but everything was different. His grandmother's home was still standing, though it showed signs of wear and neglect. The paint was peeling, and the garden, once his grandmother's pride and joy, had grown wild. The old swing on the front porch creaked in the wind, a reminder of the countless summer evenings spent there under his grandmother's watchful eye. Tom couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. He had let this place, this part of his life, slip away. One afternoon, Tom sat by his grandmother's bedside, holding her hand as she rested. Her friend Mabel had been helping care for her, and the two women had spent a lifetime together in Greenwood. Mabel's presence was a comfort, her steady wisdom reminding Tom of the life he had once known. "Your grandmother, she's always been proud of you," Mabel said one evening as they sat together in the hospital's waiting room. "She never once complained about you leaving, but she missed you. This place, it missed you too." Tom nodded, his throat tight. "I missed it too. I just didn't realize how much until now." As the days wore on, his grandmother grew weaker, and the doctors told him what he already feared. Her time was short. Each moment with her felt both precious and unbearably fleeting. Tom found himself thinking back on all the times he could have visited, all the moments he could have been here for. The years that he had spent chasing success now felt hollow in comparison to the warmth of his grandmother's love and the simplicity of his hometown. "Don't live with regret, Tommy," his grandmother whispered one evening. "You've done great things. Just don't forget who you are. This place, it's always been a part of you." The day came when Tom knew he would have to say goodbye. It was a crisp, clear morning, the kind of morning where the air was cool but the sun was warm on your skin. Tom sat at his grandmother's bedside, her hand resting in his. She was peaceful, her breathing shallow but steady. The weight of the impending loss was suffocating. "I'm so proud of you," his grandmother said softly, her voice barely more than a whisper. "You've always made me proud." Tom's heart ached. "I should have been here more. I should have come back." His grandmother's eyes, though tired, were filled with love. "You were where you needed to be. but don't stay away any longer." With those words, she closed her eyes, and Tom knew that it was time. He sat with her for hours, holding her hand, until finally she slipped away peacefully, leaving behind a lifetime of memories and a love that would never fade. The funeral was small and intimate, as befitting the small-town life she had led. The townspeople gathered, sharing stories of her kindness, her strength, and her unwavering love for her grandson. Tom stood at the edge of the crowd, feeling both overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and hollowed out by the grief of losing her. At the gravesite, Tom stood alone, staring at the headstone. It was a simple marker, but it held the weight of a lifetime. His grandmother had been the last connection to his parents, the last piece of his family. Now he was truly alone. Mabel approached him, her eyes filled with the kind of wisdom that only comes from years of life and loss. "Your grandmother loved you more than anything, Tom," she said gently. "She knew you had a life to live, but she also knew that you'd find your way back." Tom nodded, his throat too tight to speak. He had always been searching for something: success, fulfillment, purpose. But standing here, in this small town, he realized that everything he had been searching for had been here all along. In the weeks that followed his grandmother's passing, Tom found himself at a crossroads. His company wanted him back in the city, but every fiber of his being told him to stay. The family home had been left to him, and though it was in desperate need of repairs, it felt like the one solid thing in his life now. Mabel, ever the voice of wisdom, encouraged Tom to follow his heart. "This place has always been your home," she said one day as they sat on the front porch. "Your grandmother left it to you for a reason. She wanted you to have something to come back to." Tom spent his days fixing up the house. He repainted the walls, repaired the old fence, and restored the garden his grandmother had once tended with such care. As he worked, he felt a sense of peace settling over him, a peace he hadn't felt in years. The house, like his heart, was healing with each passing day. One day, while working in the garden, Tom reconnected with Sarah, an old friend from his childhood who had also returned to Greenwood after years away. Sarah had her own story of loss and rediscovery, and together, she and Tom found solace in each other's company. They shared stories of their past, their struggles, and the life they had both left behind. As the days turned into weeks, their friendship blossomed into something more. Tom realized that, in coming back to Greenwood, he had not only found his way home, but he had also found love. The Christmas season arrived, and as the town prepared for the holidays, Tom and Sarah stood together on the porch of the family home, the lights twinkling in the distance. Tom knew, without a doubt, that he had found his way back to where he belonged. He had come home, and this time, he wasn't leaving. As the days in Greenwood turned into weeks, Tom McMillan found himself settling into a new rhythm, a pace of life far removed from the hustle and bustle of the corporate world he had once thrived in. Each morning, he woke to the sound of birds chirping outside his window and the soft, familiar smell of pine drifting through the house. It was the same house where he had spent countless childhood summers with his grandparents, but now it felt different, as if the walls themselves were inviting him to stay. The repairs on the house were nearing completion. Tom had thrown himself into the work, not just to pass the time, but as a way to reconnect with the life he had left behind. His hands had become accustomed to the feel of wood and nails, of dirt beneath his fingernails from working in the garden. The once neglected flower beds now bloomed with vibrant colors, a tribute to his grandmother's love for gardening. It was as though, with every flower that blossomed, a piece of his heart mended. But it wasn't just the house or the garden that was healing. Tom himself was changing. His priorities, once driven by ambition and financial success, had shifted. The town of Greenwood had slowed him down in the best way possible. Life was simpler here, and in that simplicity, Tom found something he had long forgotten: joy. One particularly crisp morning, Tom found himself in the kitchen, brewing a pot of coffee while the sun rose over the hills. The golden light streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the room. He smiled to himself, feeling content in a way he hadn't felt in years. And then there was Sarah. Sarah had come back into his life like a gentle breeze. Unexpected, but entirely welcome. They had known each other as children, running through the fields together, climbing trees, and dreaming about the future. But like Tom, Sarah had left Greenwood in pursuit of a life elsewhere. Now, they were both back, drawn to the town by different circumstances but sharing a similar need to find themselves again. Their friendship had grown over the past few weeks, evolving into something deeper, something neither of them had anticipated but both welcomed. They spent afternoons walking through the town, revisiting old haunts and creating new memories. They talked about their pasts, the triumphs, the failures, the things they wished they had done differently. And they talked about their futures, though neither of them was quite sure what that future would look like. One evening, as they sat on the porch of Tom's house, watching the sun set over the hills, Sarah turned to him with a soft smile. "I'm glad you came back, Tom," she said, her voice quiet but sincere. Tom looked at her, his heart swelling with emotion he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. "I'm glad I came back too," he replied. "I didn't realize how much I needed this place. How much I needed you." Their eyes met, and for a moment, everything else faded away. It was just the two of them, sitting on a porch in a small town, wrapped in the warmth of a love that had been waiting for them all along. Christmas was fast approaching in Greenwood, and the town was beginning to buzz with excitement. Twinkling lights were strung along the streets. Shop windows were adorned with wreaths and garlands, and a sense of joy filled the air. For Tom, it was the first Christmas he would spend in Greenwood in years, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. This year, everything was different. As the holiday drew near, Tom and Sarah found themselves spending more and more time together. Their relationship had blossomed into something beautiful, something real. It wasn't just the memories of their shared childhood that brought them together, but the understanding that both of them had grown and changed in the years since they had left Greenwood. They were no longer the children who had once played in the fields. They were adults with their own scars and stories, finding solace in each other. One snowy evening, just days before Christmas, Tom decided to take Sarah to a special place, one that held deep meaning for him. It was the creek where his grandfather used to take him fishing when he was a boy. The water was frozen over now, but the sight of it brought back a flood of memories. He and Sarah stood on the edge of the creek, the snow falling gently around them, and for the first time, Tom felt truly at peace. "This place," he said, his voice quiet, "it's always been a part of me. I just didn't realize how much I missed it until I came back." Sarah nodded, her gloved hand slipping into his. "Sometimes we have to leave something behind to understand how much it means to us." They stood there in the silence, the world around them hushed by the falling snow. Tom turned to face her, his heart full of everything he had been holding inside for so long. "Sarah, I never thought I'd find my way back here. But now that I have, I don't want to leave. Not without you." Tears glistened in Sarah's eyes as she looked up at him, her breath visible in the cold air. "I don't want you to leave either," she whispered. "This feels right. You and me. This place. It all feels like home." Tom smiled, his heart swelling with love. "It is home, and I want to build a life here, with you." In that moment, standing by the frozen creek under the falling snow, Tom knew that he had found everything he had ever been searching for. Success, fulfillment, purpose. They were all here, wrapped in the love he felt for Sarah and the connection he had to this town. Greenwood wasn't just a place on a map. It was his home. It always had been. A few days later, on Christmas morning, Tom and Sarah gathered with the townspeople for the annual tree lighting ceremony in the town square. The whole town had come together to celebrate, and as the massive tree lit up with thousands of twinkling lights, Tom felt a sense of joy and belonging that he hadn't known in years. As the crowd cheered and clapped, Tom turned to Sarah, pulling her close. "Merry Christmas," he whispered, kissing her softly on the cheek. Sarah smiled up at him, her eyes shining with happiness. "Merry Christmas, Tom." Later that evening, back at the house, Tom and Sarah sat by the fireplace, sipping hot cocoa and watching the flames flicker in the hearth. It was a quiet, intimate moment, one that felt like the beginning of something new, something lasting. Tom looked around the room, at the old furniture that had belonged to his grandparents, at the framed photos on the mantelpiece, and he knew that this was where he was meant to be. This house, this town, this woman, they were his future. "I think your grandmother would be proud of you," Sarah said softly, leaning her head on his shoulder. "You've done something beautiful here, Tom. You've come home." Tom smiled, his heart full. "Yeah," he said, wrapping his arm around her. "I think I have." And in that moment, sitting by the fire with the woman he loved, Tom knew that he had found his way back, not just to Greenwood, but to himself. And this time, he wasn't going anywhere. As the years passed, Tom and Sarah built their life together in Greenwood. The family home, once worn and neglected, was now filled with warmth and laughter. The garden bloomed every spring, a testament to the love that Tom's grandmother had instilled in him. And the swing on the porch, once a lonely relic of the past, now creaked under the weight of Tom and Sarah's children as they played. Tom had found his happiness, not in the boardrooms of the city, but in the simplicity of small-town life, surrounded by the people he loved. Greenwood had given him everything he needed: a home, a family, and a love that would last a lifetime. And as he sat on the porch one summer evening, watching the sunset with Sarah by his side, Tom knew that he had truly found his happily ever after. Hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring you more incredible stories. Share it with your friends to help our channel grow. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.